Thank you for joining this webinar. Today is all about AI in market research. In the last few webinars I've run, I've done a poll asking market researchers what utilization they have of AI. I've got this same distribution of responses in Asia, Europe, and the US, and same amongst customers and non-customers. And for all you purists out there, no, it's not a random sample, definitely a convenience sample. Some researchers are getting big productivity gains, but only a third of market researchers are using generative AI at the moment. So is it going to be that useful for you? If you're one of those who aren't using it, it is. Look, there's an easy 5% gain in AI in terms of productivity. For some people, a lot more. Very, very few companies, I don't think, can get a benefit. A few years ago, I conducted a concept test for a product called the Apple iLock. It's a fictional product. I'll give you a moment to read it. Sorry, it's a pre-launched product, I should say. My focus today is on showing how AI has changed how I would go about doing this concept test if I had to do it again. Before I jump into the concept test though, I want to go through some general principles because there are quite a few different expectations about what AI does and can and should be used for. I just want to clarify from my point of view what it can and what it can't do before looking at how to actually use it. We all want the same thing. The jargon for what we want is a fully autonomous AI agent. That is, a computer-based minion, which we can give it a task, it goes away, does it perfectly, comes back to us and tells us it's done. So in the case of the concept test, we'd like to be able to say, yo, AI, do a study which assesses whether we should launch the iLock or not. And it would come back to us with a completed study. Now, one of the big tropes in market research is they said we'd have flying cars and all we got was an iPhone. Well, more recently, Elon told us we'd have self-driving cars by 2018 and we sure still don't. Why don't we have them? We don't have them because they require a fully autonomous AI agent. So a self-driving car is a fully autonomous AI agent. It's just an example. Now, to use a fully autonomous AI agent, I think there are two situations. You need to be in one or the other of them. The first situation is you need to have AI that is error-free. And we haven't worked that out for cars yet. When I say we, I mean the entire tech industry, not working for cars. If left on their own, they crash, they don't stop. They don't do it very often, but not safe enough. The AI is not error-free. The other situation when you can use a fully autonomous AI agent is when it's both easy to spot errors and it's okay if there are errors. And a good example of this is chatbots. When you interact with a chatbot, you ask it a question and it just gets your question wrong and comes back with some nonsense. But you can usually spot it and it doesn't cause you massive pain, usually. And so there's situations when you can use AI agents. Now, as market researchers, how many of you have clients that are okay if there are errors in the reporting? I don't recall any that I had. So the only situation where we could be using a fully autonomous AI agent is when the AI is error-free. And as of today, this isn't the case. As a fairly good little example, and it's not hard to create these, I've used ChatGPT to generate this image. I told it, create an image in Pixar style of a cat drinking a milkshake with lots of chips and draw it in a wide aspect ratio. And it's magic. There's a lot it's got right. But there's also some stuff it hasn't. It's felt the need to write chips on the wall, chips on the sugar shaker, and it put the cherry on top of the wrong thing, right? Very, very impressive, but it ain't error-free. As of today, market research AI technology isn't error-free, and as our clients aren't okay with errors, we shouldn't be using fully autonomous AI bots. We're working, of course, on ways to reduce the error rates as a company, and the whole tech industry is, and there's lots of things that are coming along which will improve this a lot, and we will get AI bots that we can use in market research. But for situations that I'm familiar with, we aren't there yet. So when can we use generative AI technologies in market research? I think there are three basic things that need to be in place for us to get productive use out of the technology. The first is it needs to be easy to spot errors. It needs to be easy to correct the errors, and it needs to be faster to use AI than to do it in some alternative way. When we've got all that, we've got a perfect application for AI. So back to the case study. I'm going to take us through the ILOC case study, which I showed you the concept board for a little bit earlier. And we're going to look at 12 different stages of the research process and how suitable and how much time savings we can get out of AI in each of these. Now, so far, I've been showing you everything in Displayr. For the top half of the research process, I'm just going to do it in standard ChatGPT. I could actually do it in Displayr, but the ChatGPT user interface is nicer, so we'll use it for that, for these kind of problems. And the bottom half will move into Displayr, where Displayr is a lot more efficient as a tool for using the AI. Now, I devoted about 20 years of my life to trying to be the most knowledgeable market researcher that I could be. I was the guy that people would come to for the tricky problems and work through the options and study design. And they don't come anymore. And they don't come anymore because AI is actually really good at study design. Let's do an example. Is the computer better than Tim? We'll find out. Now, hopefully you're good at reading things on the fly. You can see it's actually chucked out a whole lot of information. Now, I've given this particular request to ChatGPT maybe a couple of dozen times now, and it actually gives a different answer every time, but the answers are all basically correct. It comes up with a broadly good design, recommends some focus groups. In this case, it's going for an in-home trial. It doesn't always come back with the same answer, however. I'll point out something which I think is kind of entertaining. Like, it keeps changing the age description. Here it wants people 25 to 55. It's come back at 18 to 65. So it's like going to real market research. You go to different researchers or the same researcher on different days and you get slightly different designs. But basically, it shows you all of the things that a professional market researcher would know to do, which a novice wouldn't. So if you're a novice, a massive time saver. For me as a researcher, I would use this feature today if I was still doing market research because it's a great way of getting started. And then you can tweak it and say, well, what? You know, so like a human being, it's kind of cool. It'll deal with the fact that I can't type or spell that well. So I've asked it to do what sample size. Like many an advanced quant person, which I used to be, it's going to bore me with a whole lot of detail that I didn't really ask for. And then it's come back with a remarkably precise prediction of I need a sample size of 385, which is kind of cool. It doesn't always come back with the same answer again. I've seen it come back with 200 and up to 1,000 in certain situations. But if you keep asking, go, yeah, sure, can I have a smaller one? Like a real researcher, he'll haggle down and learn and come back with a smaller answer. So again, huge time saver if you're a novice. I wouldn't be asking for sample size information, but I can certainly see the benefit. Next step in the research process is writing a questionnaire. Let's get it to do that. Now, writing a questionnaire is one of those things that really differentiates the experts from the novice. Everybody thinks they can write a questionnaire, but the novice writes a questionnaire which at analysis time they discover isn't very good, or they might not discover it's very good, whereas the professional has a whole lot of wisdom and experience about what will make analysis easy. And ChatGPT is pretty good at it as well. So it comes back with a questionnaire, and I've run this many times, and it comes back with basic questionnaire, which has got all of the key bits that you want to ask. Again, a different questionnaire every time. It's got its intent to purchase kind of questions that's already put in there. It's got timing, it's got a whole lot of stuff. It writes a very long questionnaire, so you're going to be kind of poor if you use ChatGPT to do your concept testing. But again, it's a great place to start. When I did this ILOC study, it was about a decade since I'd done a concept test, and I actually had to go and find my company backups, find all the old concept tests that I used to do, and look at them. But today, again, it's a no-brainer. I would draft my initial first questionnaire using ChatGPT or some other technology. So going through the process, study design and writing a questionnaire are clearly cases where we can save time using generative AI tools like ChatGPT. The less experienced you are, the bigger the benefits you're going to get here. But I think for me as a researcher, and I have spent many years doing it, that there's a big payoff here. I haven't seen any tools that yet automate the programming of the questionnaire using generative AI, except for kind of some very trivial things like adding lists of responses. But this is actually pretty easy to hook up, and I think this, if it's not already out there, is going to come pretty quickly. I wouldn't be using generative AI to do my field work. Firstly, if it hallucinates, that is, makes an error, and it leads to me having no men in the sample, I'd be kind of cranky. Or if it decided to interview a million people and I had to pay for them, I'd be super cranky. But I think when the kind of techniques improve, it'll move into this area as well. What about creating an analysis plan? Now, analysis plan is an area where the novice researcher tends to have a lot of difficulty. And if you've ever read a novice researcher's reports, you tend to find that they come back with frequency counts. 32 men said this and 54 women said that. They don't even know basic things like how to compute percentages. If you read through this as it's appearing on the screen, it is actually covering broadly everything that you need to do. I don't think it's got anything that would help me as a researcher. I'd actually be pretty happy to go ahead and do this on my own. But if I was a novice, I'd be having a lot of value. And it also has some problems, to be frank, like it's down here going, I'm doing conjoint analysis and statistical testing. And well, you ain't doing conjoint analysis because the questionnaire contained no conjoint. You can't do conjoint if it's not in the questionnaire. So again, not perfect, but I just want to reiterate the point I was making a little bit earlier. Easy to spot errors, easy to correct errors, and it's fast to use AI. And so as a place to start, particularly for a novice researcher, you get a real benefit even doing the research, even doing the analysis planning using AI. I'll ask you to trust me on this because it's kind of hard to show a negative, but it's not good for cleaning and tidying numeric data. These are things which, as an industry, we've got ways that we do it, and they tend to be very company specific. They're not general principles. And I think it's vastly faster to be doing this using existing technologies than to try and use AI, and vastly better because it's consistent, which AI is not. But for cleaning and tidying text data, AI is miles and miles ahead. Let's have a look. So here's the data from the ILOC study. I've got in it two questions which are open-enders, what you like and what you dislike about the particular concept. Now, a standard data cleaning exercise is you go through the open-enders and check there's no garbage. So I'm going to select the two. I'm going to insert a new variable here, AI clean text data. It's going through and it's in the background. Now I've got a sample size of 300. It's in the background for each one of those responses going clean or not, clean or not, and it's going to return that as some new variables. Now, this is something that we're doing in the app because the great time saver that we can provide is making it easily hooked up to the existing data. Let's have a look at what we've got. And I'll just narrow these columns a little bit. Oops. And we'll sort it. So a 1 is when the AI has decided that the data is of poor quality. Remember, 9 is concept likes, 10 is dislikes, and it's done a pretty good job. It's a bit line ball. Should we take this person who's not a very good speller in or out? I don't know. Now, the really good thing about generative AI technologies, and kind of the bit that's really quite magical compared to earlier generations, is that you can actually tweak things. And so let's go and have a look at that. So at the moment, let's have a look at the prompt we've got here. So I'll give you a moment to quickly read my prompt. Now, if this was a traditional computer code, you couldn't do much with it, but because it's an AI prompt, we can edit it. So I'm going to say to it, look, what if you're not sure? Okay. So I'm telling it, rather than to give it 1 or 0, to basically give a score between 0 and 1. I've kicked it off. You can see up here, it's doing it. Now imagine if you had a human being and you got them to code up all the data as messy, then you said, I've changed my mind. Can you redo it using this rule? You're going to have a little bit of happiness. But here we just get to watch these cool dudes do the little dance. And we can look in and see the ones that are bad. And I think in this case here, you kind of go, well, the bottom response here, the 0.5, I probably want to keep it in the sample. The others I want to take out, and so I'm going to delete them, select the rows, delete rows, and quick as a flash, I've cleaned my data file. Let's say quick as a flash, still updating. There we go. So I think that's a massive time saver. Now I've used these little colored things with the AI icons to indicate the time savers. We saw study design right in the questionnaire. We've now seen cleaning and text data. But there's no question what the true hero feature is for AI, and it's text categorization and coding. And when I say hero feature, I of course mean in our industry of market research. So we're going to look at the likes data. I'm going to go into text categorization. Now, for those of you who are using our software out there, I should point out a little difference here. Everything in the AI menu is something that you need to have your own ChatGPT account for, and you can hook it up to that. And it's a pretty straightforward process. The text categorization, which is the most generally applicable and useful thing, we don't use using ChatGPT. And why do we do the difference? Well, ChatGPT is a great technology, but it's only available in the US. And we have a lot of clients who aren't able to use data or services hosted in the US. Now, the text categorization features aren't using the ChatGPT technology, and they work in most markets. There are some where the technology is still not available, whereas the ChatGPT is going to bring your own because we can't commit to it being done on servers other than the US, sadly. Anyway, so let's go look at the likes. We'll insert a new variable, text categorization. We want to allow the responses to be in multiple categories or multiple response. Now I'm going to start it off with 20 categories, and I'll explain why, and you'll see why when we do it, and I'm going to automatically categorize. Now this is a little bit slow. It's doing a lot of heavy lifting in the background here. The few things I kind of want to emphasize though, I talked before about how everybody wants a fully autonomous AI agent. That is something you do on your own. And it's particularly the case in the text categorization. Customers and my colleagues who deal most with customers, they keep coming back to me and they're going, Tim, you built this feature wrong. You're asking me to have the number of categories, but I don't know how many categories. The AI needs to tell me. That is, it needs to be fully autonomous. But the reason that we don't do that is really important. Like, it's actually easy for me to program, big grandiose, it's easy for us, one of my colleagues, to program it to just do exactly the automatic number of categories. The problem is, it's not good at it. And if we fully automate the process, it means it's actually hard to spot errors. You can't correct errors. And so you end up getting a fully autonomous AI agent doing a very bad job. But when you create the user interface as the way we've done it, it forces the user, sorry, yes, we're forcing you to actually look at the data and come to conclusions about whether it's of sufficient quality to tweak or improve it. So that's what we're trying to do. That's why it's not click a button, because the technology is not yet accurate for click a button to automate the whole process. We get that's what you want, but we can't build it yet. Now let's have a look. So we told her we wanted 20 categories. I'll give you a chance to have a quick skim read of the categorization, which I think is pretty cool. Now, why did I say 20 categories and how we're going to check it? Well, the way we're going to check it is we're going to read through category by category. So I'm going to first look at the convenience and ease of use. Now, a 1 means the response, and the responses are here on the left, has been categorized in the convenience and easy to use category, and other numbers mean it's also been put into another category. Now, if you look here, everything here is about ease and convenience. So this first category is a good category. Nice work, AI. Security features. It all seems to relate to security. So good job. Integration with mobile device. Yep, this category is pretty accurate. Good job. Design and style. Yep, good job. I mean, I don't know how it's worked out that black is design and style, but it seems to be, I suppose. Home automation and smart technology. Yep, makes sense to me. Brand recognition. Yep. Remote access capabilities. Yep. Now, this user accessibility thing doesn't seem to be a real category. This is easy to explain, and I'm just going to put that in missing data. The fact that it keeps it easy accessible on mobile device, it actually just seems to be the same basic point about it being, what does it mean? It's on my mobile, or maybe I'll keep that. Potential reliability, it might mess up. Well, these aren't really likes, so I'm gonna take these responses and I'm gonna put them all in missing data. I hate it when people ignore my questionnaires. Actually, let's just delete that category. Lack of interest and need. Again, not a real category because it's not related to the question I asked. Monitoring or tracking. Okay, that's cool. Benefit. Unlocking feature. Now this one here seems to be saying the same thing as, seems to really just be saying the same things as security. And so I'm gonna merge it in together, delete and reclassify as security. Now, normally when we code, there's a degree of subjectivity, and the reason that we start with a large number of categories is we merge the ones that are the same or delete them, and you end up whittled down to a good number of categories. Now, I'm not going to keep doing this. Hopefully you get the idea. Again, this is something we've integrated into our software, which means that we really quickly go, we've coded it, categorized it, drag it onto the page. Let's look at it by age. And quick as a flash, we've got key conclusions by age. So AI, massive time saver for text data. Cannot understate how important it is and the value time that it creates. As of today, I don't think you should be using AI for weighting. If you don't know anything about weighting, it would be a great way to find out how to do it in principle, like to give you instructions, but technically I wouldn't be using it. I think it just wouldn't end up saving time in practice. What about data analysis? This is an area where lots of clients say to us, yeah, AI saves time in data analysis. Let's have a look. Now, one thing you could do is you could pass it the entire data set and get it to write a report. And what I can tell you there, it just will not come back with something that you can use. If you knew nothing about data analysis and you had data and you had to figure it out, I would definitely do it. It's actually still pretty cool. But for doing things of a level where you would provide it for somebody else, like as a consultant or an internal insights team, it's miles off. But what about at the individual analysis level? Let's do an example. So I'm going to go into the AI menu. I'm going to choose data analysis. And I'm going to drag, and I'm going to tell it that I want to, what's the relationship between purchase intent and age? And I'm going to drag across my data on purchase intent and age. And let's see what AI can do for us. Now, this is an area where the AI is extremely inconsistent. I've tested this most heavily with analyzing brand imagery data, which is data that I particularly find fascinating. And sometimes it does as good a job as me, and other times it does as worse a job as me, no matter what I ask it. It's just kind of random. Let's have a look at how it did with age by purchase intent. I'll give you a chance to read the answer. So it's done a classic rookie mistake. It doesn't know we need percentages. It also doesn't know we probably want age going across the top by convention. We should be looking at all as column percentages. And it's got a few dot points at the bottom. So it's actually not really done a great job at all. It's done one of those jobs where it looks like it's done it, but it hasn't done it. So that's a save for all of us because it means our careers get to continue as researchers. And that is the general finding there. It's not going to actually do analyses anywhere near as well as a professional, but what about we just use it for slightly smaller roles? So as a market researcher, I'm going to drag purchase intent. I know I want to create a crosstab, and it's much faster for me to just create the crosstab than for me to get the AI to do it. What if I get the AI to interpret the results? And so here we've got the complete analysis, and we hook it up to that table, and we'll see what it can come up with. It's come up with a very detailed response, too much for me. So we tweak the prompt. Please give a response of 50 words or less. So it's got the basic theme. I've got to say, as it's a good job AI, as a researcher, I mean, it's kind of obvious that the interesting patterns are up here, and I would have got there without the AI. But we've all got different skills and experiences. And so it's really up to your level of knowledge about what kind of benefit you're going to get by using the AI to do this kind of interpretation. For me, I wouldn't be using it, but I fancy that this is my skill. And so maybe that's just my vanity. Now, going back to the kind of framework we're working through, the last two stages are finding the story and crafting the story. Now, one of the most requested features we've had is the ability to use AI to summarize. I understand lots of you out there are already using this functionality. Again, this isn't something I personally would find that useful, or I don't think I would. Maybe I would if I tried it more. But let me show you how it works, because as I said, it's an oft requested feature. So I've got my little output here. I will move him down here, and I'm going to hook him up to the two text responses I've got, which are these two summaries. Obviously, in reality, you do it to a much larger number of answers. Now it's going to be verbose again, so I'm going to go summarize in 30 words or less. I actually didn't do too bad a job already. Anyway, let's do it again. We can do a better font. Okay, it's done an okay summary. So that's a time saver if, for example, you have a situation where a colleague is very verbose. And the last one is crafting the story. Now, this is the one that's quite interesting. I use it primarily to generate images, and I get a lot of value from it. And I've shown you in this presentation lots of images created. None of these are created by AI. You can see the prompts saves me so much time. Now, I'm lucky enough, I've got an internal illustrator that I've got access to, and I only use her now for this style of illustration, which I think I couldn't get using an AI tool at this stage, although I haven't used the design specific ones like Canva and Adobe, so maybe I could if I had more skills. But at the moment, I get my value using human person to do it, and she's fully autonomous human agent. I was able to tell her the 12 categories, and she on her own went away and did it and came back with exactly what I wanted. I think it would have taken me at least a day to get something half as good as this using AI, but for all of the others, the AI is just phenomenal. Now, we do actually have an image feature in the app as well, if you want to use it. Where it saves time is when you kind of want to hook it up to data in some way. I'm just going to do a much simpler prompt here for the moment. Now, we've learned already in this study that older people are less interested in technology. So create an image in Pixar style. So Pixar is my house style for animation that shows older people disliking technology and younger people liking it. So I do think the image generation is a great technology in general. Let's see what we get in this case here. And again, this is something that if I was working with an illustrator, this would turn into a day-long project, a human illustrator. Let's see what we get from ChatGPT in this case. I don't think it's got it quite right, has it? It's the old people seem pretty happy. It's important to add up. It's important that the old people do not enjoy the technology, whereas the younger people do enjoy it. Now, this is actually a situation where I'm pretty sure what's going on in the background is this AI has been designed to not show prejudice, and it's assuming that my request is prejudicial against old people, some form of hate speech. Yes, there is some fun psychology in the world of tech. And the thing that's really interesting about this is, so I've run this particular one about 20 times now. The first 5 times I ran it, it consistently gave me young people using phones and older people not using them. And it's now not willing to do that. So very irritating. Back to the illustrator for this one. Anyway, thank you very much. Let's move on to the questions round. Who has a question about something that I've shown today that I can answer, or about anything at all, really? Now, if you're looking at some of this software and you're thinking, and you're not using it at the moment, so you're not a Displayr customer, do talk to our sales team, and they'll be delighted to take you through examples and maybe using your own data if you're lucky. And I've just posted in the chat channel a link to book a demo. If you're not one of our customers, you are one of our customers, reach out to your customer success or your support team if you need some help using this technology. What questions have we got? Wow, that is an impressively long question, Manish. Let's go, and I've got to figure out how off the screen to scroll to see it all. Do some tools, e.g. Power BI, contain AI-based Q&A and smart narrative in their visualizations? Is this function available? I haven't seen it. I don't know. I don't work for Power BI. We certainly don't have that type of feature yet. Look, we do plan on introducing a bot that you can ask, clients can ask questions about the surveys. The problem we've got is still this, how does the client know if the answer is accurate issue? This next question was, have you validated AI delivered open text coding and what is the general accuracy? I understand it's a vague question, but any insights would be appreciated. No, we haven't. I've shown you that. I think the accuracy of AI for this is actually at this stage better than a human being. And I know that would shock people, but if I had a choice between using the AI to come up with a large number of categories and then merge them myself versus getting a human being to do the coding, I'd definitely be using the AI. And particularly with big studies. And the reason for this is that when we categorize text data, there's really two separate things we're doing. We're trying to find similar responses, and we're trying to take our contextual knowledge into account. And what I've always found when you ask humans to code is they just look at the similarity in the word meaning, but they tend not to get a good enough understanding of the goals of the study to come up with the best categories. And as a researcher, that meant I would usually be deeply involved in creating my code frames. It would take a heap of time. And I find the workflow in AI for doing this vastly more efficient and more accurate at this stage. I will stress, even a month ago or 6 months ago, it wasn't even close to the accuracy it's got now. And also with our two products, Displayr, which is cloud-based, has got vastly better text categorization than Q. The Q stuff's pretty inaccurate if you're doing it automatically, but the Displayr stuff is great, but you need to check it, right? You need to verify it and tweak it, as I talked about before. The next question we've got is, how is open text translation done? Are there native machine learning platform? Do you expect such translations to be supervised? No, translation's awesome. Let's have a quick look at translation. That's definitely a completely solved technology at this stage. I would say from a cost point of view, infinitely better than using a human being. And so I've got the data. Let's get these text likes and concept likes. We're going to go into AI and we're going to tell it we want to do translate. I've got a prompt. I'm going to say translate into French, and I'm going to say give if the responses are more than 10 words, summarize them. So yeah, and you can also give it more detailed instructions, remove this word, or if you get this particular word, translate as that. So you can keep tweaking it again, which is really cool. It's this idea that you can view the responses and you can modify or improve them. Now, it was actually translating text, in particular Google Translate, which is where the great leap forward came in all of these kind of technologies. So they're very much based on translation of language and text, and they're really, really good at it now. But they're not instant. While we wait for that to go, what's the next question? All right, let's have a little look. Now you're going to need to speak French for this, but I can help you that rien means nothing. And so we've got all of the English data here, original. We've got the French data here on the left, and it's very, very quickly summarized and translated our text data. So I think magic. Will there be any updates to text categorization feature in the future so that we can give prompt context in the question being analyzed before it starts the analysis? As of now, because of the lack of context, the tool tends to generate unrelated categories. Yeah, we do plan to introduce context into the prompt here, so that certainly will be done. I'd encourage you though, it depends when you've tried the tool. This tool's getting constantly better and better over time, and so it might be a bit better than when you last tried it. Does Displayr have any plans for making the platform more responsive and faster? I assume these new AI features would not be any help making the tool faster, if not slowing it down even further. Yeah, so we have a whole team of engineers that are always trying to make it faster and more responsive. This is not, this is one of the great challenges, that the more functionality you build in, and because things are on the cloud, that slows things down. Over the course of this year, there's been a substantial improvement in the app. There's a whole lot of features coming out which will make it faster too. I can assure you that feedback is well heard. What do you think about AI in generating synthetic data for market research? Well, let's go back to the framework that I showed you before. If you generate synthetic data, is it easy to spot errors? No, it's not. How could you know, right? Synthetic data. It will be easy to correct data. No, because you can't spot them. So I don't think synthetic data is a good fit for market research. The reason people use market research is because they want to get a sample that represents the population of interest. They're trying to know what's in people's heads. AI doesn't know what's in anybody's head. Now, if you ask it a question like, who do you think will win the next election, or what proportion of people like which political party, it can summarize data that's already out there, and so maybe it can generate a good synthetic sample, although I'd still be skeptical, to be frank. But anything that you don't know, which is really what you're doing market research for, how can it know? It's not like a magic box. Apologies to all of the vendors of simulated data out there. How can we use the text categorization if we already have a word bank of categories that we want to use? That's a really good question. It's a kind of complicated answer, so I will follow that up and I will share some information in a blog post. It will actually take a few weeks to come out because I'm actually writing at the moment, and in writing it, I've realized that some improvements I need to make to that process. But it's a great question, Robert. Thank you for asking it. We will come back with it. When you're pointing the AI to a data set, asks Melissa, is it only working from the data versus bringing the information the model was trained on? Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I showed you the example before where I'd gone and I had hooked up the data. Now, what was going on in the background for this example? Remember, we put in the prompt, or I put in the prompt, I dragged across the two variables. In the background, what we've done is we've said, hey, ChatGPT, here's two variables of data, and we've explained to ChatGPT how to read it, and we said, go away and do an analysis. What it then did in the background was it took those two variables and it wrote a program in a language called Python, and it did an analysis in Python, which is what this is. So it first generated, I should say, it generated its own analysis plan, created the analysis plan as code in Python, ran it in Python, returned it in Python back to ChatGPT, which is what we've dished up here. So it's not using any other data, except that the training data is what allowed it to come up with the analysis plan. It's what allowed it to figure out how to create the Python code. Michael asks, what do you think about using AI to summarize the document in Displayr? Note that the documentation isn't already great. Or to summarize the help documentation, it's not great. Well, that's just heartbreaking, Michael. If you find bad documentation, can you tell us about it? Because we actually get a lot of feedback that people like our documentation. What do you think about using it? It is something that we do want to introduce. The problem you get is that usually we've written the documentation to say as few steps as is practical to do it well. And so if it gets summarized, you're going to lose some steps. Anyway, this is an area where if you can reach out to us and give us examples of things that you're trying to find which went badly, we can train our AI or our non-AI, our teams to create better documentation based on your feedback, I think. Mabel asks, how to use AI to categorize answers, i.e. satisfied on design, features. I don't really understand your question here, Mabel. Can I get you to ask it again? Amity says, how much does this program cost? Well, it depends on how much of the functionality you get, I'm afraid. So if you just get the ChatGPT feature, which is we don't sell, that starts at $20 a month. You buy that from a company called OpenAI. If you want Displayr, it starts at about $2,500 a year. Again, reach out to the sales team and they'll happily prepare a quote for you. And I've sent that link in the chat channel. Have you found the AI to work well or so-so for summarizing results from all pages of charts, able to provide top 3 findings? Yeah, it's a nice question, Leslie. So you can certainly get it to summarize charts in Displayr. It does an okay-ish job. So it does a job very similar to the job that I showed here, where we're summarizing the data in the table. Basically, you get the same answer if we convert this to a chart and ask it to do it. I personally, as I mentioned, I don't find that useful functionality. I appreciate others do. If you've got, say, 50 pages of charts and you get it to summarize it, and that's kind of what I showed with that whole summary functionality that I showed here, where so you'd first summarize or interpret each chart, and then you would summarize that. You could definitely do that. Would it find the top 3 findings? Look, if they're very consistent themes, it would probably find them. I say probably because AI isn't really great in terms of consistency. That is, it makes errors, and we know that, and you have to check it. And so if you have to check the summary, is it worth the summary? Up to you. But let's say you've got 50 points and the 3 most interesting ones are defined as interesting based on their context to the client. Well, then no, it can't do that. It doesn't know the context unless you tell it the context in the prompt. Manish, you're welcome, Manish. Have you had any luck with pasting tables into IA tools and ask them to summarize it? Yeah, I've had lots. Well, luck is probably the wrong word. Technically, it's a straightforward thing to do. So in this example, which I showed you here, that's exactly what was going on in the background. In the background, when you hook up this, remember I hooked up the AI to this particular table, all it was doing in the background was pasting it in, giving it some instructions about how to interpret it, and you're getting the summary. That definitely works. As I said, for me, I can do it faster. The challenge you get with all of these things is you do need to check them, right? And that's the thing. I'm not sure there's a huge benefit in summarizing for the work I've ever done if I have to check it again. But as mentioned, we keep getting asked this question. So obviously you guys have different needs to me on this, which is why we built the feature. Taryn loves our help documentation, and we love you, Taryn. Thank you. Would I be able to have it do analysis across multiple data sets from different studies for the same client? Yeah, definitely. So the way that Displayr works, now you just keep clicking plus and you add in different data sets, and you can keep building a report with as many data sets as you wish in it. We are at the end of all of the questions. So thank you very much for all the questions. Thank you for attending the webinar. If you're not a client, book a demo with the sales team. If you are a client, hopefully you're getting value out of this, and we appreciate you being our client. Bye now.